Let's bring in one of the 86 yes votes on this veterans health care legislation, Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. Senator, it's good to see you this morning.
Thanks,
so this got hung up for far too long. It denied health care to veterans for far too long, but it did pass ultimately. We had your colleague, Senator Tester, on the show yesterday, and he really point by point rebuffed everything Republicans, namely Pat Toomey, was saying about switches and changes that had been made. He said, no, they took one sentence out of it in the House and we were ready to go with it. So what do you make of the roadblocks that were put in your way to get this thing through?
Democrats stood on the side of veterans. That's what happened. Jon Tester was able to negotiate a bipartisan bill, something I've been working on this for years with a man who lost his wife, 36-year-old woman, left 3 little babies behind, stationed next to one of the most major burn pits in Iraq. This has happened all over the country. And so with the veterans, with that passion of Jon Stewart, we basically said we stand, as was just pointed out by Katie, we stand with the people and by Jon. And one by one by one, we are scoring victories here, and they're victories for the American people. We got that CHIPS Act done so we can finally make semiconductor chips in America. That's a huge economic gain. We have the Inflation Reduction Act about to pass with the Senator Schumer and Senator Manchin negotiating that. Look what that's going to mean, $200 billion in budget in deficit reduction, finally, in addition to making sure we do something about greenhouse gases with the 40% reduction by 2030, finally taking on the pharmaceutical companies, finally taking on the NRA. This isn't just rhetoric anymore and campaign ads. We're moving this country forward. And this isn't just something we did overnight. It was hard work while getting pummeled by these extremists time and time again. I love working across the aisle. I have friends that are Republicans, but as just pointed out, we are in the mainstream and the people are with us. And that's what you saw in Kansas last night. That's what you saw in Kansas.
I can't agree with you more, Senator Klobuchar. I want to ask you about the reconciliation package. The big question, of course, is if Senator Kyrsten Sinema will support it. Is there any contact with her, her office, any word that she might come around?
I know that she's from Arizona and she's always cared about climate change. And, you know, this is a major part of this bill. The pharmaceutical piece of it, I would have gone farther months ago, but this is actually something she negotiated. And at least we are finally lifting that ban that says to Medicare you can't even get less expensive drugs for 46 million seniors. AARP is on our side on this. She knows this issue and she's already said she'd support this part. So then you get to the tax piece of it. 15% corporate minimum tax. I don't think that's going to be a problem. She has, in the past, been able to work with us on a number of issues. I say we'll get her support. I know Senator Schumer has been working with her.
Senator Klobuchar, good morning. It's Jonathan Lemire. Last night, looking at the primary results in Arizona and Michigan, Republican candidates who backed the big lie had a big night, raising real fears, were they to be elected, about the sanctity of the ballot going forward. I know you and your colleagues there in the Senate are trying to safeguard matters on that end of it, the January 6th end of it, with the Electoral Count Reform Act, which is heading to the Rules Committee for some possible changes. Give us an update as to where things stand, what it hopes to do, and is this going to become law?
Yeah, we're having a big hearing today. I'm chairing it with Senator Blunt, bipartisan. We've worked on this together. We both want to move this along. Senator Collins and Manchin put together a group, bipartisan group. They've come up with some really good ideas in this bill. I think we're going to pass it by the end of the year. What this does is basically say, remember the hang Mike Pence? It clarifies, not that we need to, but it does, that the vice president can't overturn an election of the votes of the American people. Number two, it makes it clear that one senator and one House member out of 500 some people can't just slow down and gum up the counting of the electoral votes for this country. And it puts in a 20% number, which is much more appropriate. And then the third thing, you can't come up with fake electors after an election, which is exactly what Donald Trump was trying to do. And it makes it really clear what an appeal process should be. So there'll be changes to it. We're working on it, but it's a strong bipartisan effort, and I'm proud to be part of it.
Hey, Amy, good morning. It's Claire.
Hi, Claire. I was thinking of you last night with Kansas.
I know. Missouri women still have a place that is safe, which is really important to my state. Speaking of bipartisan and speaking of Kansas, I noticed that there is a bipartisan bill that has emerged with Tim Kaine and others about codifying Roe v. Wade. Talk about the chances of that legislation and the alternative where Mitch McConnell and clearly a lot of these Republican nominees around the country want to do the opposite. They want to make sure that what the people of Kansas did last night has no value whatsoever because they want to make it a federal law that no abortion can be safe or legal.
Exactly. And I'm just reviewing this proposal, but I prefer the bill that we have voted on already, which is the Women's Health Protection Act. But that being said, what they are proposing on the Republican side is unbelievable. They literally, as you know, a number of them have said they would want to ban abortion federally, not just state by state, but federally. And so it is a very clear choice in nearly every single race in the country between where Democrats stand, people like Catherine Cortez Masto and people like Mark Kelly and Raphael Warnock and John Fetterman, where they stand on these issues. Mandela Barnes, compared to their opponents, it's not even close. Our candidates want to protect a woman's rights. They want to make very clear that it's a woman that makes a decision about their health care and not a politician, and that we don't want a bunch of patchwork of laws around this country. So that's where we are right now. And the Republicans don't even have close to the votes, to the 60 votes to get this done. We want to win at least 2 more Democratic Senate seats, and we will move and be able to codify Roe v. Wade into law. That's what we want to do.
You know, Senator, we've been talking about what Republican legislatures have been trying to do this the past couple of months, where they've seemed, I can't even believe it, that we're at this point where they're more concerned about a rapist's right than they are the rape victim. I talked about a Republican state legislature that's now trying to pass a bill where members of a rapist's family can sue a rape victim for $20,000 per rapist family member if this rape victim does not have a forced pregnancy. We look at Texas Republicans who want moms to not have protections to stop them from dying on operating tables. You look at Indiana, that's actually moving quickly because a 10-year-old rape victim, let me say it again, a 10-year-old victim of a rapist. She and her family did not feel like they had the choice to save her life, and so they went to Indiana. Now, Indiana Republicans are moving. So if 10-year-old rape victims in Indiana are victims, that they will, the state will force them to have a forced birth of the rapist's child. And then in Michigan, it just keeps going. And I'll stop after this. I could keep going all day. But Michigan last night, the Michigan gubernatorial Republican candidate who will be facing off this fall against Gretchen Whitmer said the example of a 14-year-old girl raped by her uncle was a perfect example of why she wanted to ban any exceptions for rape and incest. I just ask you, do you ever talk to your Republican colleagues there? Do they express any concerns about the extremism?
I think that they have gotten just so immersed in this we march together one way that they have lost their way when it comes to things like assault weapons, as you just pointed out, and abortion. Because the voters of Kansas last night, there's that old book, What's the Matter with Kansas? Now, we're not going to say that anymore. There's nothing nothing the matter with Kansas. They have a Democratic governor who's a woman who's great, Laura Kelly, and they have just resoundingly taken on this issue with turnout at nearly over 900,000 people, nearly a million, double what it was in the past. They turned out and they said, no, we are against this extremism. You're not going to tell women, you're not going to tell a little 10-year-old girl who got raped that she somehow has got to find her way to another state to get health care. And then when she goes there, that attorney general starts investigating the doctor who gave her her health care. This is off the charts extreme. And this is why we won big time in Kansas. And yeah, you guys are right. Those extreme candidates won in a number of places, not all places, but they won with those voters that are the Trump MAGA voters. That's who they won with. And now we go to the general election. And guess what just happened in Kansas? When it's a general election, when independents are voting, when moderate Republicans are turning out, they're going to choose the mainstream. They're going to want a party that actually is willing to take on the pharmaceutical companies and stand with AARP and reduce drug prices. They're going to stand with a party that's willing to take on weapons of war in the hands of 18-year-olds. They're going to stand with a party that's willing to say to women, you don't have to go across the country just to get your reproductive health care. And they're going to stand with a party that is willing to acknowledge that our forests are burning across the country and that we need to finally do something about it and stand up and invest in clean energy. And finally, and this is my favorite, they're going to stand with a party that wants to reduce inflation and reduce the debt, because guess what? In just a few days, they're also going to be voting against that, and we are unified for that bill.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, thank you very much. Sounds like a pretty strong platform, actually. Thanks for being on this morning.
The summer strong. It's not just what they're doing, it's what we're doing. We are moving with the White House and moving forward.